All right, so we're here to talk about The Penguin, which is just dropped this week as of recording this.
The first episode, I think, really opened up a extremely good point for DC, and they are doing Penguin justice.
And there was announced that they're going to be making a TV show. I feel like I was kind of on the edge. I'd rather them just put more effort into the Batman Part 2.
So, it's so impressive to watch this transformation. He's unrecognizable. The voice is perfect. Like, the voice has this hint of, like, desperation. And, like, I'm so excited to see where he goes in the show because every little thing.
Welcome to Backseat Directing,
Where we talk about movies, TV shows, comics, and more.
we, your hosts,
Andrew,
and Arron with Denver.
we post new episodes every Monday and Thursday.
And today we're reacting to the first episode of the Penguin series.
3, 2, 1.
Action! Welcome to the show. Oh man!
What did you do?
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
I didn't do anything.
This cost me so much money.
Well, then why are you throwing it?
Holy crap.
That's crazy. Here, show the camera. What just fell?
This is my Battle Beast Special Edition Image comic book. That was signed by Ryan Otley at Comic-Con or MegaCon last year, and I paid to have it sent out to get CGC rated. It's 9.0 CGC rated.
Now it might be a little bit lower. That was so random. All right. Anyways, as I was saying, welcome to the show, Denver.
Thank you.
What's up? Oh, we got the Batman signal.
When that light
Calling all Batman.
it's not just a call, it's a warning.
Nice. You can leave the light on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
It's not that bright. Cool.
All right, so we're here to talk about The Penguin, which is just dropped this week as of recording this. It is in the universe of Matt Reeves' The Batman film, which came out in 2022. It's the show starring Colin Farrell that's being produced on HBO Max, I think now just called Max. So if you're wondering where you can watch it, you can go on there and stream the first episode. The next episode comes out 10 days after the release of the first episode for whatever reason.
Stupid.
Whatever reason, it's 10 weeks. We don't know.
10 days.
10 days. Sorry, 10 days. 10 days.
Could you imagine?
Oh my
10
God.
weeks.
I wouldn't even
Now
watch
we're
it.
at episode 10.
But we all watched the first episode this week. And then 10 days later, we'll all be watching the next episode. So we're here to talk about what we thought about it. Denver as the guest of the show.
Denver
Like-
was begging us to come on the episode. He's
Den-
like, please,
Denver was literally...
let us on the show.
I slipped a $50 bill into the pockets.
He was literally
Wait,
kissing
you
my
did?
ring.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So, Denver, what did you think? What is your quick thoughts on the first episode?
Yeah, the first episode, I think, really opened up a extremely good point for DC, and they are doing Penguin justice. I love it, and I think the way that they are introducing him too as a underdog at the moment is really unique, and I don't think I've seen it too much anywhere else.
Feels kind of like the origins of like Kingpin or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it absolutely feels like, and I'm not the first one to say this, but it absolutely feels like The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't watch all The Sopranos. I only started it recently, like last year, and I started the first season, and for whatever reason, I didn't end up finishing the show. I was enjoying it, but this show is so reminiscent of The Sopranos. It's The Sopranos in the world of the Batman. But The Sopranos obviously starts off with its main character being Tony Soprano being like at the top of his game and being the leader, whereas this starts off with Oz Cobb he's kind of a laughing stock. I think a big point of mob movies in general is respect, and I think that's going to be a big point going forward in this. They talk about that a little bit in some of the behind the scenes interviews I was looking at. Matt Reeves mentions how when Batman first interacts with Oz in The Batman, Oz says, like, "Have you heard my reputation?" And Batman says, "Yes. Have you?" And Reeves says it's implying that he's kind of seen as a joke. But this is going to show, I think this show is going to teach us that Oz is not a joke, that he's very serious. He's a force to be reckoned with. He can think quick on his feet, whereas Batman might represent all kinds of different realms of intelligence, like street smarts, book smarts, and logic and reasoning. The Penguin is a good representation of street smarts. He's a good survivor. He's like a cockroach, and he showed that in the first episode. I think the main thing I think of is like the trunk scene where he hides in the trunk of the Maserati while they all run past. So he can think quick on his feet. He can get out of tough situations. I'm excited to see, because that's something that we love Walter White for. One of our favorite fictional characters is he thinks quick on his feet and gets out of situations like a cockroach that, 1,000 other people never would have gotten out of. So I'm excited to see what Oz brings in that sense.
Yeah, I personally hold this world very high. I love the Batman, the movie. I love how they made Gotham a character, and just how like rich and unique the film itself looked. So when there was announced that they're going to be making a TV show, I feel like I was kind of on the edge. I'd rather them just put more effort into the Batman Part 2 and make that as baller as possible and come out sooner.
Take your time.
So I do want to talk about that a little bit. So
yeah.
that was a worry that I think we both expressed when we talked about the Penguin on the show in the past.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that can maybe inspire a little bit of confidence in you is Matt Reeves's kind of lack of involvement in this project. So Matt Reeves, obviously, writer and director for the Batman. You might also know him from the modern Apes trilogy, Rise, Dawn, and War. He
didn't do Rise, but yeah.
Dawn and War, sorry. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But he is spearheading like this new verse, the Batman universe, which is separate from James Gunn's universe. And there, in an interview I watched, they were asking him if he would want to maybe direct an episode of the Penguin, and he was saying that for him, if he's directing, it really like consumes everything else. He said, yeah, some people can do it. Obviously, people direct and star and take on other roles, but for him, directing, if he's going to direct, it's going to be his whole thing. It's too all consuming. So he was focused on, at the time of this filming, on writing for the Batman, because as the time of this filming, he's just announced that he finished writing the Batman, which I want to wrap back around to that at the end and talk about some of the recently released details on the Batman and the Batman story and script. But since he was so focused on that, he couldn't be directing episodes. So he doesn't direct any episodes. He does executive produce, along with Colin Farrell, also executive producing. But his name's not credited for writing any of the episodes. It's not credited for directing any of the episodes. So that was the most involved he could be, because he is focused on the Batman. So hopefully that settles some of your concerns for the Batman Part 2.
Yeah, that definitely makes me feel good about the movie. But it before going in and watching the first episode, it maybe makes me more hesitant about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the reason why I love the Batman so much is because of Matt Reeves' direction and vision and his writing.
Watching the show, what did you guys think? Do you guys think it lived up to the world that Matt Reeves created? Do you think they paid good homage to it?
I think it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it lives up to the show. It felt like it was in the world of the Batman.
And they did a really good job of right in the beginning, where everything you see, Gotham is flooded.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally right where it left off of the movie. So they're picking up, and you're seeing Penguin's like, the whole damn city's, it's going under, it's gone to crap, blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of see where he's been going since he goes back to Falcone's, little office or whatever. And then
the Iceberg Lounge.
They start talking a little bit more. When they get there, that's where you kind of notice, like, okay, the fall of Gotham is like kind of happened, and the rise of crime is on its way. And they start to talk about that a little bit more.
The power vacuum. I think that's actually a really interesting character too. The Carmine Falcone's son. What is his name?
Andrew Falcone.
No, I don't think it is Andrew Falcone. Is it?
I thought it was Andrew Falcone.
It's.
Could have sworn.
We're gonna find out for you guys so that we don't leave you in suspense. The character that Oscobb kills in the first episode is Carmine Falcone's son,
Alberto.
named Alberto. Thank you. Save the day.
You were just thinking villain,
Andrew, get him out of here.
So it's probably the same.
But the conversation in the beginning with Alberto Falcone is a cool Easter egg, because if you've read The Long Halloween, which goes a lot into the crime families in Gotham, the Falcones and the Maronis, you'd know that Alberto Falcone is the one who's unveiled at the end of that story to be the holiday killer. So in The Long Halloween, it takes place over the course of a year. I believe starting at Halloween, where Batman is tracking a killer who kills on different holidays in Gotham, and he leaves behind like a calling card. Like he leaves behind a greeting card that's for Halloween, a greeting card that's for Valentine's Day,
Christmas,
and then at around the year mark or 9-month mark, Batman catches the serial killer, and it turns out to be from the the Falcone crime family. But that's a really cool comic if you guys want to get into Batman a little bit. It's for one, it's very famous in terms of Batman comics. So it's one of like the big Batman comics that a lot of Batman fans should read, from Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. And it tells this story I just described, but it also goes into the crime families where you'll see some of these characters like VD and like the other family members that are going to be in the show. So you can see them like on the page.
So
Sophia.
he's technically Selena Kyle's stepbrother then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're technically be
in
half,
this world. Yeah,
half siblings because Falcone's her.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And then Sophia Falcone, who comes in, is
I think too, to like ease anyone's mind that thinks like the 2025 Batman, I think is when it comes out, right around there.
I believe. No, I
Hopefully
think
2026. Did it get pushed back again?
I think it's 6. I think it's 6.
Well, here's what I think: if they really push through and do what they're doing now, and they can hold the audience's attention and build up a awesome, universe to go into the Batman 2026. I have no problem waiting 10 days for a new episode of, like, we'll say the Penguin, and then if they want to do something with like the Riddler and then add other villains to make this huge giant universe, I have no issue with them postponing Batman to make it as clean cut and as good as possible, because we were having a disagreement last night, maybe like an actual good intellectual conversation, I'd say.
where was
about
this conversation?
In the
taking place?
Discord.
the Discord.
Check out our Discord. You can join it for free.
And I think it will really freshen up the DC's
Plug.
image, and it will freshen up people's views of how they like look at some of the movies now, because like I said last night in the Discord.
You bring up two really good points that I want to talk about, which is just one that in one of the interviews I watched with Matt Reeves, he mentioned that they potentially do consider that they might do extra stories. As they said that they're looking into doing other series potentially as well that would go beyond the Penguin. And the other thing he said was that the Penguin, the ending of this series, is going to lead right up to the Batman Part 2. So in my mind, I don't believe you're going to need to watch the Penguin to understand the Batman Part 2, but I think it'll give you some extra little Easter eggs in there for people who did watch the Penguin. Will understand how Oz got where he is whenever we see him, because Colin Farrell's Oz will be in the Batman Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Can I know why do you think they did Oz Cobb instead of full blown?
It just probably makes it more simple and believable as a name.
Makes it more unique.
I was thinking
the tongue better.
Maybe like a name that he caught off more on the street or something like that, like to get away from police. And I mean, it's not as crazy as it could be.
I think the traditional Penguin backstory, he comes from like a wealthy family, so that makes a lot more sense for a name like Oswald Cobblepot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his family kind of had a fall from grace in that storyline. But like he's now Oz Cobb from the streets, so like building up a life for himself. Like you see this conversation with his mom, kind of twisted, demented relationship with his mom, and so they probably changed the name because Cobblepot sounds more regal.
I saw a lot of people kind of upset about that. I don't think it matters at all.
I don't think it matters too much. I think people have this really weird thing where they can't handle change, and I get it if it's a humongous drastic change that we've never seen before in anything else. Like
Batman wears a white suit,
right? Or Batman just decides to like show his face in the middle of the night. But I think Oz Cobb, it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal to change your name. But if he decided to, like I said, a bigger change is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's funny how people come out of the woodwork for these like small little complaints sometimes. Like we nitpick stuff a lot because that's what we do for this, and it's fun. But I mean, we always talk about it not making us like hate the show. Like I was when Batman the Cape Crusader came out, like they did the Penguin as a woman, and I was like, no, I mean, it's a big change for the character, but it's like I'm not one to die hard for the Penguin, so I'm not gonna ever say that like ruined the show for me. Like I'm not sitting here like the Penguin is my favorite character.
Yeah, I'm not a source material purist.
Yeah,
kind of like what you were talking about on our Acolyte Star Wars debate. Like it's okay if these new shows and stuff bring in their own taste and style and their own new stories. Mm-hmm. That's what we want. We want to see the same iterations, but with a twist on it. Give us something a little bit different.
I do think this story for Oz Cobb is pretty similar to the arc from Gotham. If anybody watched the TV series Gotham, that is also with the Penguin kind of starting out as general or like a right-hand man to Fish Mooney in that case, to a higher level mob boss, and then he kind of has to use like trickery and cunning and like build his way up to a bigger name in Gotham and use his kind of like ruthlessness as a weapon. I think that's a lot of what we're going to see here.
Well, yeah, I think that's what his mother was hinting at, and then that gave him the idea because I feel as if even though the Falcons they have all this power, um, I think the Penguin has a lot more respect on the street wise, and
Yeah.
as it showed, and I feel as if that's what we're going to be starting to see is they're going to want to shut that plant down, and he's going to be like, we're not moving nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, those guys that he sees every day that like see him boots on the ground,
Mhm.
they probably have a lot more respect for him than they do for these people that live in a mansion.
He knows the ins and outs of
Yeah.
the way things
Yeah,
operate.
he knows the
It's-
distribution and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you work at a big corporation and like your shift managers like know how it really is,
Yeah.
and then like the
Administrative
big-
people.
yeah, they have no idea how things are actually run.
Did you try asking for a credit card?
Yeah, it's like those people up in that mansion, they probably would have no idea how to run this business without
Right.
Oz, and yet they
Exactly.
look down on him and kind of treat him with no respect. So hopefully
He's just a man of the people.
yeah, he's a hero.
It seems
Honestly,
He
like-
is us.
he's a good guy.
It seems like he
Drop
actually.
distribution is the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It seems like he likes his people too. Like, he's real personable in this, which he comes off as kind of this douche in a way. But then when you hear him talking to, like I said earlier, like Vic or some of his other people, he's kind of like, "Go take care of yourself." And that guy that got shot or whatever, he's like, "Go take him in the back, take care of him." I don't know if that meant like take care of him, take care of him, or get a band-aid on that wound.
My vibe was that they were gonna try and bandage him up.
Yeah.
I think that my perspective of this Oz Cobb is like since he comes from this kind of street environment, he believes in like give what you get. Like if somebody comes at him with aggression and disrespect, he'll give it back like tenfold. And if he has a good relationship with somebody, then he'll do good kind of unto them. Like it seems like he's pretty ready to take this young guy, this new character under his wing.
So before we started the episode, you said you have a lot of thoughts and stuff. What are some of the things you want to touch on about the Penguin?
Yeah, so one, me and my wife looked up because we thought it was super interesting. I don't know how you guys feel about the scar on his face. I know
the one like on his lip,
on his
to
lip,
cheek.
up
Yeah.
to his cheek, because there's a lot of mixed reviews. There's a lot of people that hate it, and I am personally the one in the favor that loves it. And I kind of want to see if that brings to the table of how that glass bottle, typically in like the comics or whatever, gets lodged in his eye like later on. And then two, one of my other things, which was my only upset about this movie that I really just that scene with the car chase. I don't know if you like really looked at that Maserati, but most of the time it really it almost like it felt like it blended in with the background because of the CGI that they used. I understand it's a TV show, but it's a real Maserati.
Yeah,
Why don't you just
I don't think they're taking the real Maserati through real city streets
No.
and some of those shots like they
I
were
think
doing.
that's
Yeah.
absolutely right. They were on a stage for the interior shots,
Mhm.
probably.
For some of the Batman, they were too. Actually, surprisingly though, if you watch behind the scenes, the Batmobile is like on a soundstage, and it's just they made it look really phenomenal.
Yeah, they probably put a lot more time and money into those shots. But this was probably on a soundstage, probably with the volume still,
Mhm.
but probably wasn't as in depth of a production as the Batman. And then the exterior shots of the car going through the city, I think were 100% CGI. Like
Yeah.
all of it was CGI.
It didn't take
But
me
they-
out too bad.
Yeah, they
No.
did a good job of hiding it because the shots of the exterior of the car driving through the city were so quick
Mhm.
that you couldn't quite like tell because you weren't able to look at it long enough. I could tell because I work in editing, and you
I'm a
can tell
CGI
too
snob.
because you're
Because you're a snob.
but I think
That's what he was gonna say. Because you're a snob.
Yeah. I let you say it, but I think the everyday viewer, probably didn't think too much of it, or even if you did notice it, like it probably didn't take you out because
Yeah.
of the way that they worked around their limitations.
Because it kept coming back to him inside of the vehicle,
Yeah.
which was totally fine with me. And it just in my head, I'm going, I feel like you could find an empty lot. And I know it's a lot I'm asking. I'm not asking crazy. Like, it just was like, oh, no, we were doing so good.
The thing is, when you look from their perspective, and the other shot that I think of too is after they crash the car with the Alberto's body in the trunk, and there's like the mansion in the background. When you think of something like that, or the exterior shots of the car, you're looking at like a couple seconds of screen time within like hours and hours now, because you have an 8-episode run of 45, 50-minute episodes, as opposed to a couple seconds of screen time in the Batman is out of 2.5 hours of movie specifically.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more like concentrated.
You also have to think too of the price difference.
Yeah.
Like how much is it to rent out a soundstage?
Sure.
You know, like compared to how much is it to close down the streets of a big city to race a car that's going to be in your final product for 30 seconds total.
And then more people.
And then you have to put CGI on top of it to make this real city look like the Gotham City from the movie. So all of that adds up really, really quick.
Yeah.
I know the volume that I've worked on before, it's like $10,000 for a day shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just to be there, not even to bring the car in and pay all the production people and all that stuff. So like these shots add up real quick.
And it's way more expensive to close down a street or a couple streets in Chicago, which Chicago is where they shot some of the exteriors for
Absolutely
the Batman. So that's super expensive.
You need stunt drivers. You need, like there's a lot that goes into those types of shots. So they probably have to plan their budget accordingly for the TV show.
But I think they translated it to TV really well. Like both of you guys already said, it felt like the same world. It felt like they were kind of mirroring / I don't want to say mirroring because that almost feels disrespectful, but they were paying homage to the cinematography done in the Batman. They were paying homage to the shot styles, to the world.
For sure.
Yeah, and even though in some instances you can tell it's TV, I even think in some instances like they're trying to match that kind of bokeh effect that you talked about when we did the Batman. Like there's a lot of that still in this show, to the extent where some parts it feels like maybe a little bit too much of like trying to match the Batman, where it's like really blurry around the edges. But I think that it feels largely similar.
As an artist, it's hard to like balance that, you know, because like you're working with these tools and you're like, oh man, this looks so cool. And it's very easy to like push it just a little bit too far.
It's like the line for heavily stylized is right before the line for too much.
Yeah. It's a very thin
barrier,
distance between the two.
Do you think you could do like for them, is it easier maybe to CGI things at night for less of a not a disservice, like a displeasure to someone that like me when I'm seeing CGI, like a car chase at night would probably be a lot easier on the eyes.
They can
hide
it.
Nitpicky.
They can hide it a lot better.
You know?
I think it depends a lot on like what you're asking the CGI to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more you can hide things in shadows, I'd imagine it's easier.
Damn Penguin should have been running around argument.
It was cool to kind of see Gotham in
neon lights,
a little bit more of a brighter setting. I mean, the sun was still like kind of low in the morning or low in the evening for most of it, but it was nice to see like a different kind of view on the city.
It was
cool. The Batman was pretty much all at night.
Yes. I really liked the way this story was so connected in this first episode, following from that night where he goes to the Iceberg Lounge and shoots Alberto, and we basically see like the whole journey of like that night, hiding a body, you know, and then into the next morning, not sleeping, going back to work, pretending like everything's normal. It's like everything is so back to back that it feels like we're on this like day trip, a day in the life of Penguin. It's just a really bad day, you know. Even for him, it's a bad day. But it's really interesting the way they filmed that. And then on top of I wanted to talk about how we were saying that it feels like it's the same world. I think a big point of contention for that is, like you said, the opening of the episode, connecting it directly to the end of the Batman movie with talking about Batman, talking about getting on top of Gotham Square Garden, saving those people, the floods. And then that also even pays homage to the beginning of the Batman, because the Batman starts out with the Riddler watching this, who was it? It was like the mayor or something.
Mayor, yeah.
He's watching him through the binoculars, but then we go inside and the mayor is watching like that election campaign on the news. So that it's like also basically starts with the news as well.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a very smooth transition, but then it feels like its own story too, because rather than a detective story, it's the other side. It's the crime mob story. And like, it's so cool that they got the TV MA rating as well, because this is rated mature for TV while the Batman is rated PG-13. So, you know, they wouldn't even let Oz smoke a cigar in the Batman. Colin said he wanted to smoke a cigar, but they wouldn't let him because it was PG-13. So in this show, he can smoke cigars.
I hope they try to up that for the Batman too.
Oh, and we never talked about what you said about the scar either. We have to talk about the prosthetics and the makeup. It's amazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell that
Dude,
it's prosthetics
actors-
if I didn't know ahead of time.
The full
nude
body?
scene was
Holy shit.
insane.
Yeah.
Because at first I thought, like to maybe his like collarbone or whatever.
Probably when he's wearing clothes.
But I think they said it takes like 8 hours to do just that. So he's got a full fat suit on and all this extra detail going into that. He had to sit there for probably.
I think when they were doing the Batman, they got it down to 2 hours of makeup.
Jeez.
That's really narrowing it
still-
down because if you think back to like when they did the Grinch makeup
Mhm.
for Jim Carrey, it was like 3 times as long.
Yeah.
So they've really improved with this makeup department, which makeup is such a big part of this that in one of the interviews I was watching, the head of makeup and prosthetics and hair was in the interview sitting next to Colin Farrell himself. Like they
Yeah.
were doing it with them too.
Yeah.
'Cause that's how big a part of this is every day on set.
It's crazy.
Some of the actors said that they've never met Colin outside of makeup. So the woman
That's trippy.
the woman who plays his mother said that she's never seen him out of makeup, and she said that she liked how it reduced the fear of star power because she says she's respected Colin Farrell's work, but instead of feeling like she's nervous to work with Colin Farrell,
She's
she
just
only
working with the
sees
Penguin.
Oz. Yeah, she can't see him at all, and especially because he's putting on a voice and everything. He's so unrecognizable. Milioti, I think Kristen Milioti, is that her name, who plays Sophia Falcone, she said she's only met Colin out of makeup, she thinks 3 times.
Yeah, that's crazy. What do you guys think of that? Of them hiring an actor who is putting on all of this makeup to play the role versus hiring an actor that maybe fits the mold a little bit better visually?
I love it. I wouldn't want, in this instance specifically, I would say for sure, because I wouldn't want anybody else to play the Penguin other than Colin Farrell's. It's so good.
I think Colin Farrell hits the nail on the head almost everything he does for me. The Gentleman is crazy in that, and the way that you don't hear any Irish accent coming from him when he's the Penguin is
It's what, like a
ridiculous.
New York accent or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he has these mannerisms that are really well. So that's the other thing. You might have someone that can act maybe a little bit better than Colin Farrell, but if you have somebody that understands there's mannerisms, there's ways that like some like fat people breathe or like chunkier, heavier set people may breathe, and like you can see like the scar on his face kind of has a little cliff right here, so it might like hurt him when he's chewing, smoking a cigar, and he holds it just the right way. There's like every little detail that Colin Farrell does, I'm in love with.
I
the
know.
Penguin.
I watched like a 2-second clip of him talking to the head of the Maroney family in prison the other day, which is after I'd seen the episode, and I was like, God, he's so good. Like every little detail, and he's capturing it every second that he's on screen. Like he's not letting it go.
Mhm.
And basically, like these people that are working on set with him, I guess he's staying in character a lot on set, like sticking with the voice so that he doesn't like lose it, you know? And he's also heavily covered in all these prosthetics. So like he's basically just on there as the Penguin. Like it's so impressive to watch this transformation. He's unrecognizable. The voice is perfect. Like the voice has this hint of like desperation, and like I'm so excited to see where he goes in the show because every little thing, man.
You know when he takes off his little thing on his foot, I get the
Yeah.
boot.
Mhm.
That was really cool because when he takes it off, he shows you discomfort in his, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And he starts to grab his toes, and he's like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." And then you see him kind of like lay back, and you give like that sigh. Note that it's not his real foot, and I'm sure that boot and that it's all uncomfortable, but it felt like he was really in some like pain there.
I feel like he's that's what he talks about with creating the character. Somebody asked him what he thought the difference was between playing Bullseye and Daredevil back in like 2003 and now.
Jeez.
And he said his response was like really nothing. Like that he says like you're still just trying to breathe life into the character and make him feel real, and it's all the same stuff to him, like in terms of his performance. And I feel like he makes this character so real. I mean, he feels like a living, breathing, walking person on Earth.
It's crazy how well the prosthetics express emotion.
Mhm.
You know, because like you're saying, like his scar and like you saw his pain when he was touching his foot and stuff. Like that's got to be so hard to put something on someone else's face and let it emote the way that an actual human being would.
And then to emote underneath it on his part too. It's
Yeah.
like this marriage between him and the whole makeup and hairstyling section is like so integral to the show, and they've both done their jobs so magnificently.
The wrinkles on his forehead like disappear and intensify like as he's talking. Like, how do you get prosthetics?
He does that squinty thing a lot in this.
Well, that's the thing.
That was good.
I feel like with his performance, he always looks like uncomfortable. His facial posture, whether it's his mouth, he's kind of doing this like, you know, that painful smile people do, or like, and his like kind of squinted look. Like he always looks like he's feeling a little bit on edge, a little bit uncomfortable, and it suits the character well. He's like a rat.
He's really captivating.
Every second.
And the show doesn't have like a lot of action pieces per se, but I was still invested the whole time.
I'm hanging on his every word.
The writing is really good in this show.
What was a scene that really like you were kind of looking at it and you were like, okay, this is probably my favorite scene right now? I have one in mind, but
I mean the opening scene when he was with
that's so good.
Alberto.
Yeah, Alberto, and then Andrew, and then he shoots him. I was like
he looked
popped him like
he
5
looked
times.
genuinely like submissive throughout most of the conversation, you know, and then he like
snaps.
You had enough, flipped a switch, shot him, laughed because it's kind of like, haha, look at me now, like who's the powerful one now? And then he's like, oh shit, like this actually might have consequences. I need to figure this out.
He says that too when he talks to his new kind of protege. He's like, I go to see them. I make myself feel small. It makes them feel big, and we all walk away happy. And it's like that's what he's doing at the beginning of that conversation until he can't take it anymore.
Which is really hard to do, you know, in like real life to go and concede, you know, maybe your true desires or wills, and then behind the scenes, like actually run things the way you want to.
I think the one that stuck with me the most, and because it just gave so much dramatic pause, was when his sister, when Sophia and him are sitting in the restaurant eating, and the whole time you know she knows what's up, and he's kind of sitting there, you know, trying to be cunning, but she sees right through it. And then at the end, she's like, "I know who you are. Like, you know, I know what you're about." And you can see because he goes and runs to mom. And then
he tries to take her and like leave town.
Yep. And then his mom's like, "What are you doing? Like, you're my big bull," she says, or something in that realm.
She says, "Mama didn't raise no bitch."
Yeah. and that's where it was like, that girl, the actress's name for Sophia.
Milioti. Kristen Milioti.
She gave me good, like her stare when she's interrogating him when he's naked is insane.
She's cold. She's cold-blooded in this. There's a blank, glazed look over her eyes. Like she could just like shoot him and not think twice about it.
So I don't know too much about like the in-depth characters of the Batman lore, but is Sophia someone? Does she turn into like a villain or anything? Like
she's in
that
the
goes by a different name or anything? Like
she's in the Long Halloween comic books. I don't remember her turning into like a villain by a different. I think she had some involvement with the holiday killing, but it's so hard for me to recollect exactly what happened in that story.
Yeah.
And then what about Victor? Is he supposed to be anyone kind of hidden or anything? Does he turn into anything?
Victor Aguilar? I can look it up right now, actually, live. I was thinking about this while I was watching the show because he seems like such a prominent character in the story.
Well, at first I thought, and it was a long shot, but I was really thinking because they were inside of the green room or like that area where all the plants were when they were interrogating him, and she was given that thing. I was like, what if she just poison ivied it up right now?
Yeah.
You know?
Victor's an original character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not from the comics.
Cool.
But Sophia is in the comics. I just don't know if she has any other.
There is also the Long Halloween Part 1 and 2 on Max as well that you can watch instead of read, if you want to hear voices and see animation. So,
the animation for that is phenomenal.
it is. My only thing is that it is a watch. You have to sit there for, I think they're like
that's
an hour or so. So if you want to sit back to back, and you can handle that, but still very good.
Yeah, it's like a 2-hour. It's like a movie.
But some people when they watch animation, it's I understand like animation to
our audience knows
respects.
That's right.
But Sophia Falcone has a fall to like seemingly to her death in the Long Halloween, and she comes back in the sequel comic, also by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. She comes back in Dark Victory, and she's like paralyzed, but she's leading the Falcone crime family. So I could see her rising to leading the family in this and being like that villainous, like she already kind of is that head-to-head for Cobb. But I think that's what we'll see as we go forward.
Just you said something, and the Penguin actually kind of shows you too how terrible Arkham Asylum is, because you hear her say like, "Oh, they let you out," and she's like, "Yeah, I'm rehabilitated now. You know, like I'm better." And
She not.
she's not better at all.
Not.
So it's like, oh my god, like you can see kind of. I hope that where they're kind of going with this is they released her, which she went on a murder spree, if I remembered correctly. Who else did they let out? You know,
she there's clips in a trailer footage that she is like in Gotham, like I think she like kills somebody in Arkham or something because she's like in a jumpsuit and she like hits somebody over the head. So I think maybe we'll get some flashbacks or something later in the show. Also, apparently there's talk that Carmine Falcone was recast. Even though Carmine Falcone, played by John Turturro, died in the Batman, so there must be some flashbacks in there for that character to be introduced as well. But he had filming conflicts. He's doing some other show. I think he might be on White Lotus or something. But he couldn't come back and reprise his role, so they had to cast someone else.
Crazy.
Boo.
You guys want to talk about the elephant in the room?
The Batman.
The Batman. What do you guys think of the Batman not showing up in the Penguin at all?
For the first episode, I'm okay with it. I think that you kind of need to distance it.
But what about for the series?
They've announced that he won't be in it at all.
At all, huh?
He's like, wow, I'm done watching this.
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I think it's good because you give if you build it up right, and then there's going to be a huge maybe introduction in 2026 with the Batman. Let him become the Penguin.
Let him cook.
Yeah, just let him become the rise and shine and see where it goes. Because if he ends up being like a crazy Penguin, like top of the line mob guy that's just taking everyone out, and then the Batman has to deal with him, then I think we're in for a treat. And I think that's something that we haven't seen with like Penguin as a main villain. I mean, you get it kind of in the old movie, but it's not the main guy.
I think that Gotham's really primed for a rise right now, which is something they're highlighted in the show. It reminds me of the comic book line Batman No Man's Land, which in No Man's Land, I believe it's an earthquake that kind of levels parts of the city. And in the Batman, it's a flood. And it leaves the city ripe for taking from different factions trying to fight to take over. And I think that's the storyline we're getting here. It's going to be Oz's rise to prominence in this new opportunistic land in Gotham. To answer your question, I feel a lot better if Batman was in it. I'm going to be doing my rituals every week. I'm going to be turning this on, pointing it at the screen, and then hoping that I can summon the Batman with my bat signal every episode.
I mean, they could be lying.
If they were lying, I would rocket out of my seat if Pattinson showed up.
So what do you think? What do you think the Penguin would need the Batman? Like because let's just say right now, for the sake of the argument, he's not the Penguin. You know what I mean?
I don't think that it needs the Batman. I think that the Penguin, the character, exists because of Batman. And so for that reason, I think it would elevate the story to have the Batman in this. You know what I mean? Like them doing like stories like Black Adam and not having Shazam in it they do this over and over again.
Or all of the Sony movies without Spider-Man.
It makes a lot more sense in this case to me than it does in those movies. It makes more sense in this case because it's a TV show to add characterization to an important character that'll come back later. And it's just like world building. It makes way more sense here, but still just like, you know, one scene where Batman's screwing up their operations because they're trying to do a big drop like purchase or something on the docks, and Batman comes in and he's like fighting them. They have to escape. One little thing like that I think would add a lot of value to the show. I think it would get a lot more people to watch it. When you say that Batman's not in it at all, I think that deters a chunk of audience members.
Oh yeah, big time. You look like you're thinking over there.
Well, Andrew said something that almost I felt like conflicted to what he was saying last night in the Discord. What's that? Well, because he said that it sounded like you just said that that's what they do over and over when they rinse and repeat, and that's what I said DC kind of did for a while last night in the Discord.
Yeah, but I thought you were talking about rinse and repeating storylines. I'm talking about like this is a trend in Hollywood, not just in DC, to create villain stories that don't have the hero in them, whether it's DC or Marvel.
Or even spin-offs in general. Like Agatha is a spin-off, you know. Would it be better if Scarlet Witch was also in it?
Yeah, there's a bunch of versions in Marvel too, because there's Agatha, then most of the Sony verse. So Morbius, no Spider-Man, Kraven, no Spider-Man, stuff like that.
Venom.
Venom. I can't not do it. It physically pains me.
Okay, this is a good segue, I think, into the news of the Batman that we've gotten, right?
Yes.
Batman Part 2. What do
So
we got?
the Batman, they just announced, like I said, that I was going to say James Gunn. They just announced that Matt Reeves has finished writing it. He's definitely going to direct it. Still going to have Robert Pattinson returning as Batman. Colin Farrell's going to be returning. We don't know who the main villain is, but he has announced that the story is going to take place at wintertime. So this makes some sense considering the last story took place at Halloween. It could even be the same year, who knows? But if the last story takes place at Halloween, and then the Penguin picks up where they left off and goes for a couple weeks, and then the next story picks up where the Penguin left off, then we're getting close to Christmas time. So it's going to be in the winter. I don't know that there will be Christmas elements in there, but when they say winter, I'm expecting like a snow blanketed Gotham, which sounds very aesthetic.
Very cool.
Hopefully Greg Fraser's coming back and we're going to see all the same magic on camera. Is there any other news? They haven't announced the villain. They haven't announced new cast members that I'm aware of.
Who do you? I don't think there's anything else that's been announced, but
We can give conjecture and assume that if they're going to do it in the winter, that it hints at Mr. Freeze, which Mr. Freeze hasn't been on the screen since Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a lot of people are begging for Freeze.
think that's too obvious. Do you think that's like
If
because
we could get
they did announce that they want to keep this world more grounded and they don't want to go into
Yeah.
the mythical.
He is a science.
Aspect
He's a
of
science-based villain, so we don't know that he's going to have like a freeze ray. They could ground him. The same way.
IMDb does have Greg Fraser as cinematographer. Now
Awesome.
that could be wrong. you
IMDb
know,
sometimes just be putting stuff up there.
especially this early, but I think he's
But
coming back.
They could be definitely changing the character. I mean, grounding it the way that Nolan grounded Bane. You know.
Mhm.
What do you think? Who do you want to see?
Because Clayface was rumored for a while, right?
I think it's just like these rumors are just what people want.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm rumoring that it's gonna be
think
Poison
it would-
Ivy.
I think it would be cool if they like kind of pushed the line of realism a little bit to where maybe it's not as over the top as like James Gunn's universe is going to be, where there's like a Superman, but maybe there is a Clayface. Like I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to the Mr. Freeze, but I think if you were to do something really cool and different that would be a little bit less mythical, like you said, I believe his name is it Firefly?
Oh yeah.
And I say that because if you have like winter, bunch of fire, and that itself would be super aesthetic.
Fire and ice.
And then I know he's like a really
Yin and
small guy in I think it's Arkham Origins, which is Anarchy, I believe his name, or Anarchist, I believe it was. He's like a cool little side mission guy, but he is kind of like a revolt to when people are getting hit with these effects of like, for instance, the flood that just happened and the crime is raising. So they're trying to, balance out the power of Gotham and all this, etc., and taking money from the billionaires. But I would really like a new villain that we haven't really seen on a screen.
Wasn't Firefly going to be the villain in the Batwoman movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was gonna be played by Brendan Fraser, I think.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can do
arsonist villain.
Mr. Freeze without a CGI kind of thing now.
Which isn't a bad thing. There was a bunch of CGI
For
in
sure.
Batman.
But like in my head, like the way that they did Cyborg in DC in the Justice League, I did not like it. So
We're not comparing apples and oranges.
No.
Matt Reeves' Batman is different than the
right. So that's
Zack
why
Snyder's
I hope if you do a Mr. Freeze, you don't do the whole like it's storm, it's cold in here.
full head to toe CGI. My hope is for the Court of Owls, and I'll beg for this forever and ever. I like the serial killer stuff too, so like Mr. Pig or Victor Zsasz would be really cool also, but they just kind of did that with the Riddler, so I doubt I see them going back and
Do it
doing the
again.
same thing for me. I love serial killer stories.
It worked for the first
Dude,
time.
I love David Fincher, so if they threw in like a is it Mr. or Dr. Pig, one or the other, or Victor
Like
Zsasz.
Hush or
Vic-
someone.
Hush, they can make a serial killer too.
Hush would be.
He's really crazy too. Like him trying, it'd be a perfect time for it at this point in developing the Bruce Wayne persona too, because he tries to like take on the.
Didn't Hush, I think in a comic, like kill Batman, like almost, right? It was like to a pulp. He was beating him up, and I think Hush was like calling his bluff, and Batman tried to. It was like just a panel that I seen, and Batman trying to like kind of hit him, and Hush like told him like sit down, little boy, in a way, and just hushed him, and you see him just laying there for the panel.
The main one I know is just called Batman Hush, so maybe it's from that. But I haven't read it yet. I don't own it.
I know the Court of Owls give them hands. So
I love
they just
dude
beat
Talon.
them.
If they put Talon in this, the fight scenes would be insane if they put Talon from the Court of Owls. The main Talon literally just boxes the shit out of Batman, and
Wrecks
he almost kills him like 3 times, and he throws him out of a whole ass building. I guess Bruce Wayne.
Do you think they're going to introduce or show Batman going into the League of Shadows by chance? Or
think-
maybe like this time frame where it's all flooded, do you think, or they're just going to stray away from that?
They released like a collection of written works, I think, that detailed kind of some background details for Robert Pattinson's Batman, talking about how he spent years like roaming around the country and meeting with different people to train under them to learn different fighting styles. I don't believe that it mentioned the League, which I think the League is a big important part of how Batman became Batman, but maybe they want to stray a little bit away from that because of Batman Begins and not maybe going stuff that people aren't as familiar with, changing it a little bit. It would be cool to see Ra's in the League. I just think it'd be hard to find a Ra's that could do it better than Liam Neeson. Like Liam Neeson's my Ra's al Ghul, you know what I mean? I'm not. But they are
Jason Statham.
Jason Statham. Oh, Gotham needs some work. Where's the job?
That's the butcher.
Oi!
Oi!
Sorry about your ears. Yeah, I definitely would love to see the court, like the conspiracy angle, and like the way the maze in the Court of Owls storyline is like driving Batman crazy, but like also a testament to his willpower to keep his mind intact and like get out of the maze. Is a really cool like psychedelic kind of character study type of story where you like really get into Batman's like hallucinations, seeing his parents die, stuff like that. I think that it's so rich. Also, it's like Scarecrow, because Scarecrow can do a lot of those stories too, but we've just recently seen Scarecrow, so this gives us something new. And we saw Scarecrow in 2005, not that recently, but
But
I
it
think
was
it'd be
more of
super
a
cool.
side gig.
Yeah, he was more of a side villain to Ra's.
And I think what you just said kind of made a lot of sense. Is you heard Penguin talk about like the droplets, you know, they're pretty powerful stuff, and like they're working on this new thing. Makes me think if you put
Fear toxin in it.
and you're amping it up and you're getting that through the streets, then you know wintertime and you have a Scarecrow, that would
Yeah.
be something insane to think.
Visually, you could do amazing things with fear toxin, and like modern times, you could do so many cool kind of psychedelic things.
A
in
little
terms
more
of,
mythical and like unrealistic
you
stuff.
could play with the realism by having Batman hallucinate things. Like he could
Right.
see, you know, kind of like that sequence in Blue Eye Samurai where she's
Yep.
like hallucinating. Which is so cool. So I think that'd be awesome for fight sequences. But I love the court because I feel like Bane historically, the court has done a great job of challenging Batman on a physical level, a mental level, and on his detective skills because it's this big conspiracy. So it also like strikes to the core of what Batman thinks about himself and his confidence. It's like in the comics, he's like, if there was something like this going on in Gotham, I would know. Gotham's my city. I'm the greatest detective. I would know. And then he doesn't know, and it shows like Batman is fallible and he's not all knowing, and it kind of strikes at his like belief in himself in a sense. And then like the bringing Talon on, like I said, to physically challenge him.
Dude, if all that happens though with Pattinson's Batman, everyone's gonna be like, his Batman's so soft and gets his ass kicked so much.
He's stupid. He didn't solve the case.
He's the worst Batman of all.
He didn't solve the case before it even started.
Yeah. But I think it is a good time for him to face the Court of Owls because he is still kind of new. So like he figured it out in his first 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Rather than in the comics, it feels like he's
Years.
been Batman for a decade.
In comics, the whole Bat family already exists.
Yeah.
Nightwing is an adult and
Yeah.
wearing the Nightwing costume, so it's very long.
So we're definitely going to see multiple villains, right? How do you think they're going to intertwine all of that?
I mean, Penguin's got to be in there. That's already one villain.
Yep.
And I hope they do it the way some of the Arkham's games do it. Is they're not friends, but they're more, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. And I think they'll kind of conflab and do what they need to do to either take down Batman or try to take over Gotham. And I think with the flood, and then if maybe they don't have all the water gone and that winter does come, you know, they'll take advantage of that. But I hope that's kind of where they go with it. Is it's just like a big mob of villains that the Batman has to kind of like take down either one at a time or attempt to take him down. And that's when you get your, here's more superheroes coming in to, you know, maybe help or.
I hope they introduce more classic elements too, like maybe some more characters like that like you bring in another, you know, Justice League member very briefly, or the main thing I'd like to see is like the Batwing would be really cool, and I want to see Dick Grayson's Robin show up, even if he's just like his ward and he doesn't take on the role of the Boy Wonder yet, and he's just adopts a child, and that plays into like the story and like the mindset of Batman. Ah! Tornado warning coming in. Sorry about that, guys.
We're actually our
I know
superheroes, and they just
love it.
called us in. So
Quick to that game.
All right. Anything else you guys want to touch on for the Penguin or the Batman?
Yeah, is there anything else for the show? Because I feel like the plot of the show is can be described pretty. Oh my God, we get it.
Hurricane! Hurricane!
The plot for the show can be described pretty succinctly. You know, it's like he kills Alberto when he makes a rash decision. He takes on Victor to hide the body, and then the rest of it is him trying to like hide that from the family, and then they get out of it kind of at the end by pinning it on Maroni with that little car crash. So you can surmise it in like 2 or 3 sentences. But it pulls out very long. Like you said, it's still so enjoyable because of the writing and like the performance of the Penguin sucks you in. I love how the Penguin is in like every second of it. Is there any seconds of the story that we want to touch on before we wrap the episode? Because there is more in there, I guess, but that's like, it's not a lot that happens, right?
well, he was really smart. I would say this too, is it was more at the end, but when he gave back the pinky ring and then he planned to put make the car drive in there,
He set the dominoes.
he pretty much made it impossible for it to be linked back to him because Maroni's going to have that pinky ring, and he put it all in the back of the trunk there and all that. So it's kind of like that's his time now. I think we're going to see the progression of Penguin.
It also gives Maroni like something that he might want to take credit for,
Yeah.
like killing the new quote unquote head of the Falcone crime family. I mean, that's kind of a big deal for the Maronis who have been pushed to the background. We get a lot of cool details into the crime underworld of Gotham in this show too. They kind of describe how Carmine took over and pushed the Maronis out a little bit. So we're gonna get to see like the underbelly of Gotham and get more insight into that before the Batman 2 comes out. I think this show, while not completely necessary, adds a lot of good value for me, and I think I'm going to enjoy watching the whole thing just because I like seeing him on screen.
In 10 weeks from now.
10 weeks. Fucking
I
10
think
days,
you
so
said
long.
it too, or maybe it was Andrew, but someone said something about like deterring fans because there was no Batman in it. I read online it was like 5.2 million views the first night that like premiered on the 17th or the 19th, which I think is only second to, I think it was the Game of Thrones. I believe it was.
I think people are a lot less tired of Max content than they are of like Disney Plus content. People on Disney Plus are like a little like jaded and kind of burnt out, but on Max people are like, they put out a lot of effort into their stuff.
5.2 for a TV show, the first episode, I think, and it being the Penguin of all things is
a
ridiculous.
success. I think it's being viewed pretty well right now. I haven't heard people
92%
talk poorly of it, but I haven't heard too many people talk of it.
Yeah, some of the best stuff for DC, at least, for sure.
Thank you, Arron. I appreciate that comment. I do. Somebody does not appreciate good things.
There hasn't been a lot from DC, other than the Batman, really. At least recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty rough going. I mean, I can't make a big argument for Aquaman 2, lost money.
Lost a lot of money. As my box office team is aware of.
Painfully aware of.
But a tough subject for me.
I'm very excited to keep watching the show. I think that it's going to be on a good track. I'm excited for a lot of TV right now because I'm enjoying Agatha as well. So I have some weekly releases to keep me chugging along.
Yeah, I think we should all reconvene at the end of The Penguin. How many episodes is it supposed to be?
8.
Yeah,
8?
I think it's an 8-episode run.
That's good.
Which, if you do it, a week, it's, gets us nowhere close to 2026, but maybe we'll get a season 2.
Nowhere close.
I don't think we're going to get any other shows from this world until after part 2 of the Batman. They were supposed to do like an Arkham kind of cop show or whatever, but that got scrapped. I think it got canceled because of James Gunn and his universe.
Which I also think is super unfair to Matt Reeves and anybody else.
Yeah, I think you can definitely have both going on at the same time, and I think you can invest into both a lot. There's multiple runs of comics for all of these stories.
You have that in multiverses, so
Yeah,
it's like, and not that we need to get back into multiverses with DC. They need to hang on a second.
Yeah, like we don't have to do like a bunch of multiverse stories, and these aren't that necessarily.
Yeah.
They're just separate universes, and it's really not that hard to follow. or keep up with or explain. Like, hey, Pattinson's Batman is this world. Everything else is the DCU. Like, it's not that hard to explain, even if there's two Batmans. It's not that hard.
And I haven't even heard anything about James Gunn wanting like a Batman for sure right now. Like as far as like who he wants
They're
it to
gonna
be.
do The Brave and the Bold. That's the Batman movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna do
that movie's confirmed. It just hasn't been casted.
It looks like they're gonna do an older Batman with like Damian Wayne, Robin. I have something that might blow you guys' minds right here.
Oh.
This show is rated on IMDb an 8.8 so far, which granted, it's only 11,000 ratings, but that is incredibly high on IMDb. The Batman is rated 1 full point lower at 7.8. Isn't that atrocious?
Disgrace.
IMDb rating 7.8 for the Batman?
See, I think people gave the Batman a lower rating because of nostalgia of The Dark Knight.
They gave it a lower rating too because it was longer, but it's like just because it's long doesn't mean make it bad.
What are the Lord of the Rings movies rated?
Yeah,
those things were so long and so slow.
They're all three of them are in the IMDb top 100.
I think you heard Robert Pattinson and people were like, blech. That's
Twilight?
Yeah, like this vampire?
Also, Agatha has a 6.7. So the Penguin's doing 2.1 full points better than
I mean, the Penguin's good, but it's definitely not a full point better than the Batman.
That's ridiculous. I mean, the Batman probably has like 200,000 more ratings to like dilute it down.
Sure.
So like the Penguin I said had 11,000, the Batman has 814,000.
Yeah.
800,000.
I think people are too harsh on the Batman.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fair rating. 7.8. That's almost mediocre. Like to me, a 7.5, that's a C.
Yeah,
it's not a C.
That's like TASM too.
Yeah.
Quick question about how do TV shows that do stuff like this, where does their income like for the actual movie to continue go? Like where does it come from? Is it just the actual subscription that's for Max?
Yeah, they calculate it some weird way. They calculate it based off people that are like watching it plus some formula that uses that plus new memberships gained at the time of the show's release to determine like the financial value of that show, but there's no way to accurately do it.
It's murky, and I feel like either way you're losing money
because you don't know who's subscribing at that moment to watch the Penguin. Probably not a whole lot of people, and like I mean in the grand scheme of things, but then also like people are watching it, not watching the whole thing, so it's hard to calculate the value of your show.
Wasn't Secret Wars $230 million to make or something stupid like that?
Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Zach, I swear Zach also called it Secret Wars. We talked to him like a week ago.
Maybe that's why I got
both of you.
Jeez.
But yeah, that one they're expensive. By episode they're expensive.
Yeah.
Like they're getting to be like Stranger Things level budgets, and Stranger Things is a known hit. Like but yeah, they spend a lot of money on these shows when things like Stranger Things, it makes sense because it's one of the biggest draws to memberships for Netflix. It's like their marquee original show. Plus, like Stranger Things sells a shit ton of merch. Like they sell like frozen levels of merch. You see backpacks and shirts everywhere. But the Penguin is not a merch bomb. The Penguin is like basically a long format commercial for the Batman Part 2 in my eyes. You know what I mean?
That's a good way. I like that.
See, Zach will buy Penguin toys, but
he probably will.
But not everyone.
If McFarlane does a line with like Oz Cobb on it, I'm sure he'll scoop it up.
It'll come with the pinky ring.
That'd be sick. I'd buy that. If I had
not real gold.
If I had the Falcone pinky ring, I'd wear that. Round out my hand. I put on the other hand probably.
All right. What do you guys think of the first episode of The Penguin? Let us know down in the comments. If you want to join in more on the conversation, you can hop on the Discord. Denver is in the Discord chatting with us all the time. We do a bunch of different debates and discussions about movies and shows. Stay focused here. My eyes are up here. We also take episode recommendations in the Discord as well. Again, the price of the Discord it keeps climbing, and I feel guilty and bad, but we gotta make a living, you know. So,
unfortunately,
Andrew, how much is the Discord to join?
In today's market, it's totally free.
Yeah, you can just join by clicking on the link. It's that easy. Denver did it even.
Yeah, he was dogging you. He said, "You're a snob. You're a CGI snob." It's so easy. Denver could do it. He started a new line of guys.
Look, he's on the show now.
That's literally the Discord's a straight pipeline to the show.
Yeah.
McNeil joined the Discord and then came on the show.
He's on the show. But we post new full episodes every Monday and Thursday. But we also post new extra content as well. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Andrew, where else are we?
We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, all over the place. Make sure to check us out on there, as well as all your places where you can listen to podcasts: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating and a review on there. It helps the show find new audience members. But the best thing you can do to grow the show is to share us with friends and family, especially those that loves movie, TV shows, comic books, and more, because we want to start this conversation, build this community, and we all just like the same thing. So it's it makes it perfect sense. You should share us with all those people.
How many people do you think actually listen to this part of this show?
Every one of us. I think that they probably skipped the bulk of the episode to get to this.
Here? Yeah.
They're like, who? They're like, Penguin, who?
Putting this in the video chapters.
Yeah.
You know, to really get people to jump.
So they can skip.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, Penguin, who cares? I want to know, like,
where are they?
Well, how's the best way to share the show?
Yeah.
Is Denver really a monkey?
Thanks so much for watching, and
that's a wrap.